They call themselves chosen.
Let's
Look at
explore
this
the
weakling.
third spiritual mark carried by God's chosen ones, a mark that often goes unnoticed but holds tremendous power. You have the gift of sensing situations and environments before anything is visible or logically explainable. Have you ever stepped into a room and immediately felt that something was off, though no one said a word? Or perhaps you had a strong feeling that something was about to unfold, and moments later it did. These experiences aren't random. They are part of the spiritual discernment God has placed within you. This mark is not simply about intuition. It is a divine awareness, a supernatural perception that transcends what the eyes can see and the ears can hear. You are able to detect spiritual atmospheres, read emotional undercurrents, and sense unspoken truths long before they come to light. This isn't just a personality trait, it's a spiritual gift, one that the Apostle Paul described when he wrote, "The person with the Spirit makes judgments about all things." But such a person is not subject to merely human judgments. 1 Corinthians 2:15. This verse reminds us that those filled with the Spirit operate on a different frequency, one that discerns hidden realities. In the Bible, we see this gift clearly in the life of Elisha, the prophet. In 2 Kings 6, Elisha repeatedly warned the king of Israel about the enemy's plans, not because he saw them with his eyes, but because God revealed them to his spirit. The king of Aram was so frustrated, he thought there was a spy in his own camp, not realizing Elisha could hear the very words he spoke in secret. Does that sound familiar to you? Have you ever known something you couldn't explain, only to see it confirmed later? That's not coincidence, it's calling. Even in modern times, individuals who are highly intuitive are often misunderstood. Nikola Tesla, one of history's most brilliant inventors, once said, "My brain is only a receiver." In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. Tesla was known for seeing solutions to problems in his mind before putting them on paper. Though he wasn't a preacher, his words point to something deeply spiritual, a connection to divine knowledge beyond this world. So, if you've ever been told that you're too sensitive or that you overthink, consider this instead. What if your sensitivity is sacred? What if God wired you this way because you are meant to sense what others miss, to see what others overlook, and to move when others remain still? Could it be that this mark, the ability to perceive what's unseen, isn't just a trait, but a tool for your mission? You aren't imagining things, you are discerning, and that sensitivity, that early alert system within your soul, it's a mark of your calling. This heightened awareness you carry as one of God's chosen ones exists because of a deep spiritual resonance with what many now call the informational field, a realm that goes far beyond the physical. You may have sensed it without knowing what to call it, a silent but living force that seems to whisper truths before they appear in the natural world. Everything in creation vibrates with energy. Every word, every action, every emotion has a frequency. And because of the mark you bear, you're naturally attuned to those frequencies. You don't need anyone to explain them to you. You simply know. Interestingly, even science is beginning to catch up with this divine reality. Quantum physics now suggests that the universe is not just composed of tangible matter, but of energy and probabilities, a field of potential that responds to conscious observation. Some physicists now speak of observer effect, where simply observing an outcome influences how it unfolds. Could it be that your awareness of what hasn't yet happened actually interacts with what's about to take shape? What if sensing the unseen isn't just a gift, it's a responsibility? In the Bible, this type of deep sensitivity can be found in Joseph the dreamer. Before anything happened in the natural realm, Joseph saw it in his spirit, visions of rising, of favor, of famine, and of divine preparation. His brothers misunderstood him. They thought he was arrogant or delusional. But in time, his discernment proved to be a lifeline not only for Egypt, but for his entire family. Could it be that you, like Joseph, are sensing realities before others are ready to receive them? But here's the challenge. Living with that perception often feels like a burden. When you speak out, people may label you as overreacting. When you try to warn them, they accuse you of being dramatic or overly emotional. When you recognize danger or deception early, some may call you suspicious or judgmental. It's not easy to live ahead of your time, spiritually speaking, and yet that's exactly where God has placed you, on the front lines of awareness. Actress and humanitarian Angelina Jolie, known not only for her career but for her global advocacy work, once said, "If you ask people what they've always wanted to do, most people haven't done it. That breaks my heart." She speaks to something deeper, the disconnect between what people sense and what they act on. But you, chosen one, are different. You are not only sensing things early, you're also being called to respond. So the next time someone calls you too much or too intense, pause and ask yourself, what if you're not too much, but just too early? What if your timing is not wrong but divine? What others dismiss as exaggeration is often just early insight. You're not overreacting, you're operating in spiritual foresight. You're not arrogant, you're awakened. And that awakening is a mark of your divine identity. You weren't made to fit into the world's timelines. You were chosen to prepare for what's coming. And sometimes that means seeing the storm while the sky still looks clear to everyone else. This spiritual sensitivity you carry as one of God's chosen ones doesn't just speak to your soul, it also manifests through your body. You've probably experienced it, a sudden chill for no reason, a rapid heartbeat in a seemingly calm environment, or that deep, undeniable pull to distance yourself from someone or someplace. These aren't random bodily reactions, they are divine signals, your spirit's way of communicating through your physical vessel. Your body, in its God-designed wisdom, often knows before your mind catches up. This is a form of spiritual intelligence woven into your biology. It's protection in motion. Think about how David must have felt when he approached the battlefield to bring food to his brothers and suddenly sensed something wasn't right. As he watched Goliath defy the armies of the living God, something stirred deep within him, not fear, but a righteous fire. His physical reaction led him to spiritual clarity. That inner alert prepared him for the battle God had already ordained for him to win. You might not be facing a physical giant like David, but don't overlook the battles your body is trying to help you avoid. That uneasy stirring around certain people, that sense of dread before stepping into a place, that sudden tightness in your chest when someone smiles but their spirit feels off. These are not just emotions, they are spiritual alarms. And when you begin to honor them instead of brushing them aside, something powerful happens. Even outside the Bible, people have spoken about this bodily knowing. Maya Angelou, the beloved poet and civil rights icon, once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." Often, our bodies pick up on what our minds try to rationalize away. The Holy Spirit can whisper through a shiver, a pause, or a pounding heart. Are you listening? It might feel uncomfortable at first. You may wonder, why am I so sensitive? Why can't I just go with the flow like everyone else? But ask yourself, what if this sensitivity is not a flaw, but a form of spiritual armor? What if every chill, every instinct to step back, every rush of adrenaline is actually heaven's way of steering you around hidden traps? The moment you start respecting these internal signals, your walk begins to change. You no longer move based on appearances or public opinions. You begin moving by discernment. You're no longer guided by surface logic, but by divine intuition rooted in God's presence. This is when real transformation begins. When you stop asking, "Does this make sense?" and start asking, "Is the Spirit giving me peace?" Because you weren't created to live by sight alone. You were chosen to walk by faith, and sometimes that faith looks like listening to what your body already knows your spirit is trying to say. As one of God's chosen ones, this sensitivity you carry doesn't just remain a fleeting feeling, it matures. Over time it sharpens into something more profound, an inner compass, a divine guidance system etched into your spirit. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. The more you trust it, the stronger it gets. And as it develops, it begins to protect you from decisions that would pull you away from your divine path. This compass isn't based on fear, nor is it driven by logic. It's grounded in truth and alignment with your essence. You begin to notice that certain choices, even when they look right on paper, simply don't sit right in your soul. You feel a check in your spirit, a tug in your chest, or a still small voice whispering, "Not this way." Have you had moments like that, when everything looked perfect on the outside, but something deep inside told you to pause or walk away? This is the beginning of true spiritual maturity. The Bible says in Isaiah 30:21, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" That's what happens when your spiritual discernment becomes a compass. You begin to walk not by sight, but by that holy direction within you. You dodge relationships that would drain your soul. You sidestep opportunities that were never yours to begin with. You say yes to God's timing, even when it means saying no to the world's urgency. And this kind of wisdom, the ability to feel before you see, is ancient. Solomon, known for his wisdom, asked God not for riches or revenge, but for a discerning heart. 1 Kings 3:9. He understood that discernment would guard him far more than any army or treasure ever could. That same divine insight is being activated in you. Even in today's world, people are starting to awaken to this forgotten truth. Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple and a pioneer in technology, once said in a Stanford commencement speech, "Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become." While he may not have spoken in spiritual terms, his words echo the same core principle. There is wisdom in what you feel before you understand it. So what would happen if you stopped silencing that inner nudge? What if, instead of pushing it aside, you started honoring it as God's voice in motion? You'd begin to live in alignment. You'd stop walking in circles and start walking in purpose. And perhaps most importantly, you'd begin to suffer less, not because life is easy, but because you're no longer resisting the path designed for you. This is the mark of those who are truly awakened. You don't need to wait for visible signs to know what's right. You've been chosen to carry an ancient wisdom, a sensitivity that can save you from sorrow and lead you into destiny. Are you finally ready to let it guide you? As one of God's chosen ones, when you carry this mark, the ability to perceive what others cannot, you begin to live as if you can see the invisible. And in a way, you do. You're not relying on physical sight alone. You're guided by something deeper, something sacred. You move according to what is sensed in the spirit before it manifests in the flesh. And once you stop second-guessing that gift, once you stop treating your spiritual discernment as coincidence or imagination, everything begins to align. Clarity comes, direction flows, peace settles, and yes, prosperity follows. Why? Because when you are in tune with what God is revealing to you beneath the surface, you stop walking blindly and start walking boldly. You're no longer chasing the world's version of success. You're following divine alignment. As Psalm 37:23 declares, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way." When your spirit is tuned into his guidance, favor flows, doors open, confusion fades, It's no surprise then that the universe, God's created order, responds to those who are in harmony with its rhythms. It's as if everything around you begins to shift to accommodate your alignment with truth. You find yourself in the right places at the right times. You sense danger before it strikes. You attract provision without manipulation, and people often wonder, how did you know? How did you move so wisely? But it's not you alone. It's the mark of God upon you, leading you by what cannot be seen with the natural eye. And yet, there's another side to this mark, a more hidden one. While you may think you've been quietly walking in this gift, there is a group that notices you before you even say a word. They feel your presence before you speak. They sense your energy before you introduce yourself. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly felt eyes on you, not out of curiosity, but out of recognition? There's a spiritual weight to who you are. You don't need to announce your identity. Your spirit already speaks. And it speaks not just to the righteous, it also alarms those who walk in darkness. Just as Jesus often disturbed demonic spirits simply by showing up, so too do you carry an unseen authority that causes a reaction. In Luke 4:34, a man possessed by an impure spirit cried out, "Go away. What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us?" Not because Jesus had spoken, but because his very presence exposed what was hidden. In a similar way, your presence carries truth, and truth is confrontational. This is why some people feel uneasy around you, even if you've done nothing to offend them. It's why certain individuals reject or resent you without ever truly knowing you. Could it be that your light is revealing something they're trying to hide? Could it be that you remind them of something they haven't yet faced? Even in the world of leadership and fame, this phenomenon exists. Robin Williams, the late actor and comedian beloved for his joyful performances, once said in a rare moment of depth, "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always." That kind of unseen struggle, felt not spoken, is something you detect in others. You sense pain behind smiles. You notice truth beneath performance. And it's this spiritual depth that sets you apart. So don't be surprised if people sense you before you speak. Don't be discouraged if your presence shifts atmospheres. It's not arrogance, it's anointing. And those who recognize it, whether friend or foe, are simply responding to what God has placed upon you. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to carry this light. And now that you're starting to understand it, can you feel the shift already happening around you? Now let's uncover the second powerful mark that many of God's chosen ones carry, one that may have seemed ordinary at first glance, but reveals something extraordinary. Children and animals respond to you differently. Have you ever noticed how a child, even one you've never met, stares at you intently or reaches out their hand without hesitation? Or how a dog or cat quietly settles near you as if drawn by an invisible force? These moments aren't coincidences. They are spiritual confirmations, whispers from creation that you carry a divine presence that cannot be hidden. You might not have given it much thought before. Maybe it seemed like kids just liked you, or that animals were just being friendly, but in truth, these pure beings are responding to something deeper in you, a spiritual frequency that can't be faked or forced. Unlike adults, they don't judge by appearance or social cues. They don't care about titles, wealth, or outward confidence. They feel energy. They move by instinct. They recognize truth without needing proof. The Bible reveals this kind of purity in the way God uses even the smallest and most innocent to discern what adults often miss. In Matthew 21:16, Jesus quoted scripture saying, "From the lips of children and infants you, Lord, have called forth your praise." Children are attuned to the spiritual realm in ways we often forget as we grow older. That's why they are so drawn to the presence of someone who carries heaven's light within them. Could it be that the purity in them is resonating with the purity in you? Take Jesus himself as an example. When he walked the earth, children were drawn to him. In Matthew 19:14, he said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Why do you think they came running to him instead of hiding? Because his presence was safe. His spirit was love. His energy was pure. Even animals throughout Scripture are used to reveal divine truths. Remember when the prophet Balaam's donkey spoke to him in Numbers 22:28? That wasn't just a miracle, it was a lesson. Animals are more spiritually aware than we realize. They feel tension, sense danger, and perceive peace. So when animals naturally gravitate toward you, resting at your feet, following you, calming in your presence, it means they've detected something spiritual. Your very energy brings safety to the atmosphere. This truth is also echoed in real life. Jane Goodall, the world-renowned primatologist who spent decades studying chimpanzees in the wild, once said, "Only if we understand can we care. Only if we care will we help. Only if we help shall all be saved." She often noted that animals responded differently to people depending on their energy and intent. They could sense who was safe. Likewise, you radiate something that cannot be taught. It must be carried. So the next time a baby locks eyes with you in a crowded room, or a stray dog walks beside you as if you're old friends, don't brush it off. Ask yourself, what are they sensing in me that I have yet to fully recognize in myself? Could it be that the light you carry is more visible to the pure-hearted than even to you? Your silence speaks. Your presence heals. Your energy calms. You don't need to announce who you are. Those aligned with truth, even the smallest among us, will always recognize it. And that recognition is one of the clearest signs. You have been chosen, and the mark upon you is undeniable. While most people rely on what they can see or hear to judge others, those still connected to spiritual innocence, like children and animals, read with the heart. They aren't analyzing your clothes, your words, or your status. They're listening to something much deeper, your energy, your essence. And when they approach you without hesitation or show you affection for no obvious reason, it's not just because they like you. It's because they recognize you. They feel safe in your presence. To them, your spirit sends a silent but powerful message. You are safe here. This reaction happens for one profound reason. You are living in alignment with your higher self, the part of you that reflects God's image without distortion. That alignment emits a clear and harmonious frequency, a spiritual vibration that is coherent, truthful, and healing. And when that frequency meets a being that is still pure, untainted by ego, pride, or social conditioning, the recognition is immediate. No need for conversation, no need for explanations. You carry a light that speaks straight to the heart. This is what it means to walk in divine alignment. And this is why children who barely speak, or animals that don't even know your name, still gravitate toward you. It's not about logic, it's about spiritual resonance. In John 10:27, Jesus said, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me." This isn't just about hearing with ears. It's about recognizing the divine voice in others. When a child comes to you, or an animal rests at your feet, it's because they've heard that silent voice within you, the one that echoes the heart of God. The prophet Samuel was just a boy when he heard God's voice for the first time in 1 Samuel 3. He didn't recognize it at first, but his purity allowed him to hear what the older priests had forgotten how to listen for. Likewise, children and animals don't always know what they're sensing around you, but their spirits respond instinctively to the light within you. Even in the real world, this phenomenon is quietly acknowledged. Fred Rogers, the beloved creator of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, was deeply aware of how energy affects others, especially children. He once said, "When we can be present to the moment with the person that we happen to be with, That's what's important. He understood that presence, true, peaceful, authentic presence, has the power to heal, to comfort, and to build trust without a single word. That's the kind of presence you carry. So what does your presence whisper to those around you? Is it saying, you're safe, you're loved, you're seen? Because whether you realize it or not, those too young or too unconditioned to hide behind masks are already responding to you. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are and what you carry. This mark, the ability to draw the innocent, the pure, the unguarded, is not small. It is sacred, and it's a confirmation that you are in communion with something higher, something eternal. You carry a living spark, a divine connection with the all, and the purest among us can see it, feel it, and follow it without hesitation. What you carry is far deeper than simple charisma, because no, this isn't about charm or magnetism that can be learned, rehearsed, or faked. Charisma, after all, can be a performance. But you, as one of God's chosen ones, carry something sacred that cannot be mimicked or manufactured. You carry a spiritual frequency, a divine resonance that flows naturally from a soul aligned with wholeness, truth, and purpose. This frequency isn't something you put on like clothing. It's who you are at the core. It is the vibration of someone who understands, even without needing to articulate it, that true abundance doesn't come from striving, status, or external success. Instead, it flows from being whole in spirit, connected to God, and at peace with yourself. Have you ever wondered why people either gravitate toward you or pull away without explanation? There's something about your presence that stirs others on a soul level. It's not because you speak loudly or try to impress. It's because your spirit radiates healing, comfort, and awakening. Your very presence becomes a sanctuary for those who are searching, even if they don't yet understand what they're searching for. In the Bible, we see this same mysterious effect in the life of Jesus. In Mark 5, a woman who had suffered for 12 years with bleeding was healed the moment she touched his garment, not because Jesus said anything, but because power flowed from him. What if your frequency, your inner alignment with the Holy Spirit, has a similar impact on others? Could it be that people feel something shift in themselves just by being near you? Some might find you strange, even off-putting, and they won't be able to explain why. Others will feel instantly safe and open in your presence. Why such opposite reactions? Because your spiritual frequency acts like a mirror, revealing what's in harmony and what's out of alignment in the hearts of others. This mirror effect can be both comforting and uncomfortable, depending on how ready someone is to face the truth within themselves. As you continue to grow in awareness, wisdom, and connection to God, this silent yet transformative influence only becomes stronger. You begin to walk through rooms and shift atmospheres without saying a word. You awaken people's dormant potential. You stir their conscience. You reveal truth just by being. Consider Mother Teresa, a woman who was not glamorous by worldly standards, yet people felt peace just standing near her. She once said, "Peace begins with a smile." Her presence carried a frequency of divine love because she lived in alignment with God's purpose for her. Isn't it possible that you carry a similar essence? That your spiritual signature is not just noticeable, but profoundly needed in this world? So ask yourself, what happens to people when you enter the room? What do they feel, not just see? Perhaps you haven't fully realized yet that you carry a spiritual mark, an anointing, that speaks louder than words ever could. Never underestimate the divine power woven into your presence. As one of God's chosen ones, what radiates from you is not just a mood or personality trait, it's a spiritual force. You may walk through life quietly without needing attention or applause, yet your energy reaches into unseen realms and touches places in people's souls they don't even know exist. Your presence has the ability to pierce spiritual dimensions, to bring light into rooms full of silent suffering, and to stir hearts that have grown numb to truth. Have you noticed how, without saying a word, your very being shifts atmospheres? There's something sacred about the way your spirit communicates. When a child locks eyes with you and smiles for no reason at all, or when an animal, often more attuned to spiritual purity than humans, lays beside you as if you were home, it's not just a sweet moment. It's a spiritual confirmation, a quiet validation from the universe, from God Himself, that you are walking in alignment with who you are called to be. Your energy is already speaking on your behalf, louder than any introduction ever could. This reminds us of the story of Daniel in the Old Testament. Even in a foreign land, surrounded by people who didn't share his faith or values, Daniel's presence was so distinct that kings sought his counsel. He carried an excellent spirit, Daniel 6:3, one that made him stand out without striving. Isn't it possible that your life is reflecting the same kind of quiet excellence? Could it be that people feel compelled to trust you or even confess things to you without knowing why? You may have never consciously noticed it, but your soul leaves an imprint wherever you go. It's not forced, it's not calculated, it's simply authentic alignment. Some people spend their lives searching for this kind of resonance. But you already embody it, because your spirit is connected to something higher, something eternal. The actress Viola Davis, who has openly spoken about her spiritual journey and overcoming trauma, once said, "You can't be hesitant about who you are." Her strength came not from being loud, but from being deeply rooted in who God created her to be. In the same way, your calm, centered energy speaks volumes, sometimes before you even open your mouth. If you've ever experienced that unspoken connection where someone is drawn to your presence without knowing why, take a moment to recognize what that truly means. You might feel led to write in the comments, "My energy speaks before my words." That's not just a statement, it's a revelation. It's evidence of one of the purest spiritual marks a chosen one can carry, the power to reflect God's light through being, not just doing. But there's more. While this mark influences how others perceive you and respond to you, the next one runs even deeper. It's not about the world around you, it's about the transformation happening within you. Are you ready to discover the spiritual power that lives inside your own mind? Now we've come to the most powerful mark of all, the one that sits at the very top of the list. And perhaps without even realizing it, you've carried this with you your entire life. As one of God's chosen ones, you may have noticed a mysterious pattern. Your thoughts often become reality, not just once or twice, not just by chance, but frequently, consistently, and with remarkable precision. This is more than coincidence. This is the manifestation of divine alignment, a spiritual gift that few truly understand, yet you've been living it all along. This ability is not about vague wishing or daydreaming. It goes far deeper than surface-level affirmations or hoping something good will happen. What you possess is a mind that is deeply synchronized with the very fabric of creation. Your focused thoughts don't merely drift into the void, they activate. They align with unseen forces, unlocking doors and moving pieces in ways others can't explain. When you imagine something with intention, it's as if heaven itself leans in to respond. Have you ever caught yourself thinking of someone and they suddenly call you, or visualizing a specific outcome and watching it unfold almost exactly as you pictured it? Have you wondered why this happens to you more than to others? This isn't luck. It's not a magic trick. And it certainly isn't about following rituals or formulas. What you're experiencing is a law of consciousness, hardwired into the soul of someone chosen for a higher purpose. In Romans 12:2, Paul urges believers, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Why? Because the mind is the seat of transformation. When your thoughts align with God's will, they carry creative power. Think of Elijah, who prayed for rain after a long drought, and his focused faith brought a small cloud that turned into a downpour. 1 Kings 18. His thoughts were not empty hopes. They were declarations aligned with heaven. This spiritual mark you carry is rare, and it's often misunderstood. Some may even envy it or label it strange. But the truth is, you've simply tapped into a divine truth that few are willing to believe. That faith-filled thought, when paired with clarity and alignment, becomes a creative force in the world. And unlike superstition or law of attraction trends, this doesn't depend on religion, rituals, or chance. It's a law that God Himself designed into the nature of consciousness. When you're in alignment with His purpose, your thoughts carry weight in both the spiritual and physical realms. Consider Steve Harvey, a man who went from homelessness to global success. Long before fame, he wrote a vision on a piece of paper, to be on television. He kept speaking it, visualizing it, believing it. Today, his life is living proof that focused thought, paired with unwavering faith, can bring extraordinary transformation. And he's not the exception. You too carry this mark. How many times has your focused thought turned into real-life experience? Have you dismissed it as coincidence, or have you started to recognize the power within your mind? Maybe now is the time to fully embrace that this ability is not random, it's intentional. It's a divine indicator that you are deeply connected to the spiritual currents that shape the world. Have you ever had a moment where a thought you focused on intensely, perhaps even obsessively, seemed to materialize within days? Maybe you found yourself thinking about a specific person, an opportunity, or even a challenge, and before long that very thing appeared in your life. At first it might have felt uncanny, maybe even unsettling. You may have shrugged it off as mere coincidence, but deep down something told you it wasn't random. That wasn't chance. It was your spiritual power at work. As one of God's chosen ones, your thoughts are not idle. They're not just private inner dialogues. They are signals, broadcast into the unseen spiritual field of possibility. And that field, created by God, responds. You are not simply thinking, you are creating. Every clear and emotion-fueled thought you repeat is like a spiritual decree, forming ripples that move through the atmosphere until they collapse potential into reality. Does this explain why your life often reflects the very things you focus on, whether good or bad? This isn't just modern spiritual insight, it's rooted in biblical truth. Proverbs 23:7 declares, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." What lives persistently in your inner world will eventually shape your outer world. That's why your thoughts matter so much. It's also why Jesus often emphasized the heart and the mind when healing others. He knew the true battle wasn't just physical, but spiritual and mental. This mark you carry is invisible to the eye. It doesn't rest in your voice or physical appearance. Instead, it's encoded in the way your mind interacts with reality. You don't just respond to life, you influence it. Your thoughts vibrate with energy. When charged with emotion and clarity, they act like magnets, drawing circumstances, people, and outcomes that match their frequency. But here's where it becomes even more powerful and dangerous. This mark comes with great responsibility, because just as your focused thoughts can invite blessings, they can also invite burdens. Your mental atmosphere is fertile soil, and whatever seeds you plant, hope or fear, peace or anxiety, will eventually grow. Have you ever noticed that dwelling on worst-case scenarios seems to bring more chaos, while focusing on solutions opens unexpected doors? Consider Joseph from the book of Genesis. Sold into slavery by his brothers and later imprisoned unjustly, he never allowed bitterness to dominate his thoughts. Instead, he clung to the vision God gave him. Despite his circumstances, Joseph's faith-filled thoughts shaped his reality, ultimately elevating him to second in command over Egypt. Genesis 41. Would that kind of transformation have been possible if Joseph had given his mental energy over to fear and hatred? In our time, consider someone like Jim Carrey, the actor and comedian who wrote himself a check for $10 million long before he ever earned that kind of money. He carried that vision in his heart, and years later, it became his reality. His story may seem unusual, but it's a modern echo of an ancient truth. What you dwell on persistently becomes your lived experience. That's why this mark is not to be taken lightly. You carry the ability to shape your world, not through force, but through the inner architecture of your mind. So ask yourself, what have you been focusing on lately? What thoughts have you repeated with emotional intensity? You may already be walking into the answers you've unconsciously created. Most people go through life asleep to the power within them. They chalk their victories up to luck or coincidence and explain their failures away as unfortunate circumstances. But you, one of God's chosen ones, have come to understand something much deeper. You know that life is not shaped by chance, but by intention. You've seen too much to keep believing in mere randomness. You've recognized that your mind is more than a tool for thinking. It's a sacred bridge between the invisible and the visible, a channel through which unseen truths become tangible experiences. When you carry this spiritual mark, your thoughts no longer feel powerless or passive. They become living seeds, energized by focus and faith. As you grow more aware of this divine process, your ability to co-create with God strengthens. You stop reacting to life and instead begin shaping it with spiritual precision. Have you begun noticing how your inner world reflects itself in the events of your outer world? That is no accident. That is the mind working in alignment with divine purpose. Jesus spoke directly to this truth when he said in Matthew 9:29, "According to your faith, let it be done to you." He didn't say according to luck or effort or status. He pointed to faith, which begins as a thought rooted in trust and clarity. The power to shape reality has always been there. The difference is that you've chosen to be conscious of it. This is what true prosperity looks like, not just material wealth or worldly success, but the deep knowing that creation is not a privilege, it is your nature. You were made in the image of the Creator, Genesis 1:27, which means you are also endowed with creative power. You don't just have the right to imagine, you have the authority to bring those imaginations into form when they align with truth and divine will. The more you recognize this, the more you begin to live in a state of creative awareness. You notice the patterns of your thoughts. You become alert to the images that return again and again, uninvited but persistent. And instead of brushing them off, you start to listen. Could it be that those recurring desires are not random daydreams, but spiritual blueprints, waiting to be activated by your focus, belief, and action? A real-life example of this comes from actor and filmmaker Tyler Perry. Born into poverty and trauma, he started writing stories as a way to heal. He once said, "I didn't know I was planting seeds for my future." But what he wrote became real. Today he owns a major film studio, yet his journey was never about luck. It was about holding on to his vision with consistent faith, even when no one else saw it. So now, take a moment to reflect. What thoughts keep showing up in your spirit? What desires return to you like whispers, no matter how often you try to silence them? These aren't distractions, they're seeds vibrating toward manifestation, calling you to recognize your own creative authority. The question is, will you continue to ignore them, or will you honor them as part of the destiny God has written on your heart? This level of awareness begins to elevate your entire mental pattern. You no longer drift through life unconsciously thinking whatever comes to mind. You begin to realize that your thoughts are powerful tools, not passing noise. As one of God's chosen ones, this awakening calls you to take responsibility for the reality you're shaping, because whether you realize it or not, you're creating all the time. Without wisdom, This power can be misused. Creating without consciousness is like handing over the wheel of your ship to the waves and hoping you'll still reach your destination. Can you afford to let your life be led by mental autopilot? The truth is, your thoughts are more than reflections. They are prayers in motion. Every mental image, every internal conversation, and every repeated worry or hope is a kind of spiritual request. Whether you intend it or not, your thoughts begin to ask, to shape, and to build. And this happens whether you're aware of it or not. That's why this mark you carry is so incredibly powerful. It demands intentionality. It pushes you to be deeply conscious of your inner world, because whatever you feed with your mind begins to grow. And once it grows strong enough, it seeks a path into the physical world. Scripture confirms this in Philippians 4:8, where Paul urges believers to meditate only on things that are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, and admirable. Why such a specific list? Because God knows the mind is fertile ground. Whatever is planted there, whether fear or faith, doubt or vision, will bear fruit in due time. Are you planting with care or letting weeds grow unchecked? Think of David before he became king. Long before he ever wore a crown, he trained his mind in the fields, meditating on God's word and building a consciousness of victory. So when he stood before Goliath, his thoughts were not filled with fear, but with a quiet certainty. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. 1 Samuel 17:37. That victory began in his mind, long before it happened in battle. You may see a similar pattern in your own life. Have you noticed how your most frequently fed thoughts begin to show up in small and large ways? That an idea you kept imagining, almost like a quiet prayer, suddenly became a conversation, then an opportunity, and then a breakthrough. These aren't accidents. This is the law of sowing and reaping working through your consciousness. The late Dr. Wayne Dyer, a world-renowned author and speaker, once said, "You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are." In other words, your external reality mirrors your internal atmosphere. As someone marked by divine purpose, you can't afford to leave that atmosphere to chance. So let me ask you, what are you feeding mentally? What images are you replaying every day? Because what you continually give attention to is being built, brick by invisible brick, into the architecture of your future. Your thoughts are not just passing clouds, they are seeds, they are blueprints, and when nurtured with repetition, emotion, and focus, they find a way to manifest in your life. Will you allow your mind to be guided by fear, distractions, or negativity? Or will you rise into the spiritual responsibility that comes with this mark, to think, to create, and to build in alignment with God's higher plan for your life? The mind of a chosen one is not ordinary. It is a spiritual portal, a sacred gateway between the seen and the unseen, and like all portals, it does not judge what comes through. It simply responds to the energy, intention, and frequency that is sent. This means that what you focus on, what you dwell upon, what you repeatedly imagine, will pass through this portal and begin to manifest in your world. This is not abstract theory. For you, it's personal. If you carry this mark, your spiritual journey has already begun to shift into a higher dimension. You've felt it, haven't you? You're no longer here just to observe, to survive, or to passively understand the world around you. You are here to shape it. Your role has evolved. You are no longer merely a seeker. You are becoming a co-creator with God. This is where real enlightenment begins. It's not when you simply ask for signs or answers, but when you realize you are an active participant in divine creation. Have you felt the shift, where you no longer see life as something happening to you, but through you? This truth echoes Jesus' own words in John 14:12. "Whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these." Greater things, not because of human power, but because of divine union. The moment you stop seeing God as distant and start living as someone who walks with him daily, your reality transforms. Your prayers become dialogue, your visions become instructions, and your thoughts become the brushstrokes of a masterpiece being painted through your life. This union with the All, God, the Creator, the Source, ceases to be a concept and becomes a daily practice, a living relationship. You begin to understand that God is not separate from you. His Spirit dwells within you. 1 Corinthians 3:16. And because of that, the universe is no longer out there. It becomes an extension of your consciousness, a reflection of your alignment with divine truth. This realization is both empowering and humbling. Think of innovators like Nikola Tesla, the brilliant inventor who once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Though he didn't use traditional religious language, what he understood aligns with ancient biblical wisdom. What is unseen creates what is seen. You, as a chosen one, are now living from this same truth. You're beginning to notice that your outer world shifts in response to your inner clarity. Have you stopped merely asking and started co-creating? Have you noticed that life seems to bend in your direction when you're fully aligned with purpose, clarity, and truth? That's not imagination. That's a sign you've entered a new dimension of your calling. Your mind is no longer just a receiver. It is a portal of divine expression. With every thought, you shape the world around you. With every act of faith, you bring heaven closer to earth. And with every choice to align with love, wisdom, and vision, you help fulfill the very mission God placed in your soul before you were born. You might not fully grasp how it works just yet, but one thing is certain: the universe, created by God, responds to the energy you consistently emit. As one of God's chosen ones, your vibration, the emotional and spiritual frequency you live in, carries far more power than you may realize. What you radiate, whether consciously or unconsciously, becomes your signal to heaven and earth, and that signal attracts outcomes, relationships, and opportunities that match its tone. Have you noticed how certain patterns repeat around you when your inner world shifts? That's not imagination, it's alignment at work. When you carry this sacred mark, you're not allowed to think carelessly anymore. You must learn to choose your thoughts with wisdom, with faith, and with intention, because few responsibilities are as great as this. The ability to influence reality simply by existing in harmony with your God-given essence. Most people don't even realize they're shaping their world with their inner dialogue. But you're called to live consciously, to think with purpose, to create with reverence. This truth is echoed in Proverbs 4:23, which says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." The heart and mind are deeply connected. What you dwell on within will eventually express itself without. That's why your thoughts can't be taken lightly. Your inner life is not a private place. It's a spiritual command center, broadcasting frequencies that build the framework of your future. This is what makes this particular mark, the power of mental alignment, the most transformative of all. It doesn't just change how others respond to you, it changes how reality responds to you. When your thoughts are in sync with your divine identity, when your mind reflects truth, faith, and clarity, your entire world begins to shift in response. Consider someone like Nelson Mandela, a man who spent 27 years in prison, yet never allowed bitterness to dominate his mind. Instead, he cultivated vision, forgiveness, and leadership in his thoughts. And when he was finally released, the world around him rose to match the reality he had long been holding within. You too are being called into that level of inner mastery. The more consistently you live in alignment with truth, peace, and divine purpose, the more profoundly your life becomes a testimony, not of chance, but of chosen vibration. Now that you've seen the 3 spiritual marks, your healing frequency, your gift of inner manifestation, and your mind's creative alignment, you may be wondering, what now? What does this mean for your life moving forward? Because identifying the marks is only the beginning. The real transformation begins when you stop seeing these as traits and start embracing them as assignments. You weren't given these gifts by accident. They are signs of a deeper calling, one that asks more of you, but also rewards you with more clarity, purpose, and divine impact. These marks are not just spiritual decorations, they are invitations. Each one is a doorway into your next level, and it's up to you to walk through. But here's the deeper truth. The more aware you become of who you are, the more resistance you might encounter. Why? Because the enemy doesn't fight what doesn't threaten him. The moment you begin living with intention, shaping reality with your vibration, manifesting God's vision through your mind, and healing others by your presence, darkness takes notice. That's why chosen ones are often misunderstood, attacked, or isolated. But don't let that discourage you. Let it confirm what heaven already knows about you. In Isaiah 61, it says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." That rising isn't always smooth. It requires shedding old patterns, choosing higher thoughts, and trusting the Spirit more than your senses. But that's exactly how chosen ones grow. You are now being called to live from a higher place, a realm where you don't just react to life, but command it through divine alignment. Can you feel it? That shift inside of you, that inner pull to step up, to no longer hide or second-guess your gifts. You were never meant to blend in. Your frequency was designed to awaken others. Your thoughts were shaped to rewrite atmospheres. Your journey is sacred. So, how will you use these marks? Will you bury them in fear or multiply them in faith? Like the faithful servant in Matthew 25, who didn't hide his talent, but invested it and returned more to his master. What would happen if you truly owned who you are? Living with these spiritual marks is both a blessing and a burden. It sets you apart, but it also sets you up for pressure that others may never understand. When you carry this kind of spiritual weight, you'll often feel like you're walking a road that's invisible to the people around you. You may wonder why you're attacked more, tested more, or misunderstood more, when all you've done is try to live in truth. But that's exactly what makes you different. You're not just living for yourself, you're carrying light in dark places. In Luke 12:48, Jesus said, "To whom much is given, much will be required." You've been entrusted with the ability to heal through presence, create through thought, and influence reality through divine frequency. But these gifts demand awareness, discipline, and spiritual maturity. Have you noticed that your thoughts bring consequences faster than before? That your energy shifts the room without effort? That people are either deeply drawn to you or strangely repelled? These are signs that your light is too strong to be neutral anymore. And here's the beauty in it. As you step deeper into alignment, God doesn't leave you empty-handed. With the weight of the calling comes divine support. Resources appear. Insights drop into your spirit. The right people arrive. You begin to notice that you're being carried by grace, even in the midst of storms. Just like Joseph in Egypt, who went from the pit to the palace, your trials are not punishments, they are preparation. Every delay has sharpened your discernment. Every betrayal has purified your intentions. Every closed door was a setup for something greater. But the question now is, will you remain faithful even when no one claps? Will you keep creating even when no one sees? Will you continue vibrating truth even when you're surrounded by noise and doubt? These are the moments when the chosen ones are refined, not in the spotlight, but in the silence, not on the mountaintop, but in the cave, just like Elijah, who heard God not in the wind, earthquake, or fire, but in a still small voice. 1 Kings 19:12. Can you trust that voice in your own life? That whisper that tells you, even when it makes no sense, that you're still on the right path. You are not ordinary. You never were. And these 3 marks are not just spiritual traits. They are heaven's fingerprints on your soul, proving that you were born for something higher. Every challenge you faced was allowed to reveal your capacity, not to destroy you. And now you're being called to rise, not with noise, but with knowing, not with fear, but with focused presence. So, how do you live in alignment with these 3 marks? This healing frequency, this creative mind, this divine vibration that speaks before you do. The truth is, it's not about doing more. It's about becoming more aware of who you already are. And from that awareness, you begin to shift how you think, speak, and move through the world. The first step is to guard your thoughts like a sacred garden. Not every idea deserves your energy. Not every fear is worth entertaining. You must learn to become a gatekeeper of your mind, filtering every thought through the lens of truth. 2 Corinthians 10:5 reminds us to take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Why? Because thoughts are not passive, they are seeds. The ones you water grow roots in your reality. Start asking yourself daily, is this thought building my spirit or draining it? Is it aligned with who God says I am, or does it pull me away from that truth? The more aware you become, the more intentional your inner world becomes, and your outer world begins to reflect it. Secondly, protect your spiritual energy. Not everyone is meant to have access to your frequency. You'll find that as your light intensifies, some people will try to dim it out of fear, jealousy, or simply confusion. That's why even Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray, Luke 5:16. If the Son of God needed solitude to recharge, so do you. Make space for silence. Make time for stillness. Your power is sharpened in rest, not just in action. And most importantly, stay connected to the source, to the God who placed these marks in you. This isn't about self-made manifestation. It's about spirit-led creation. When you co-create with God, your life becomes not just effective, but eternal in its impact. You begin to attract divine timing. You become an instrument through which heaven moves. Your ideas carry purpose. Your actions ripple through generations. Think of someone like Martin Luther King Jr., a man whose voice changed history, not because he was the loudest, but because he was spiritually aligned. His thoughts, words, and actions flowed from a deep well of prayer, vision, and conviction. He didn't just react to the world, he reshaped it. That same spiritual current runs through you. So now, beloved chosen one, you stand at a crossroads. Will you live in distraction or rise in destiny? Will you ignore your marks or step fully into their meaning? You don't need anyone's permission to become who you already are. You were never meant to just survive. You were meant to transform the atmosphere around you. And the time to begin is now. To carry these 3 spiritual marks in today's world is more than a blessing. It's a divine assignment. In a society consumed by noise, illusion, and constant distraction, you've been marked to be different. Your presence is not here to blend in, but to disturb the patterns of darkness with quiet light, to expose what is false by simply being aligned with truth. That is your mission, and it's one that few can fulfill. But this mission isn't always loud. It isn't about preaching on a stage or performing miracles for applause. Your true impact is often invisible to the eye, but undeniable in effect. You change environments with your silence. You shift the energy in rooms without saying a word. You awaken the sleeping just by walking in full awareness of who you are. Have you noticed how some people open up to you instantly, confessing things they've never told anyone? Or how others become uncomfortable around you, even if you've done nothing wrong? That's because you're carrying a spiritual mirror. Your light reveals the truth in others, whether they're ready to face it or not. Jesus said in Matthew 5:14, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." And that's exactly what you are. But understand this, the light isn't always celebrated. Sometimes it's rejected. Even Jesus was rejected in his own hometown, Luke 4:24. So don't be surprised when your truth triggers resistance. That's part of the call. In the modern world, where people seek validation from followers, trends, and titles, your path is different. You've been called to lead with spirit, not ego. Your power comes from obedience to the unseen, not from chasing what is popular. You may not always be understood, but you will be remembered for the way you made others feel safe, seen, and spiritually awakened. That's legacy. That's leadership. And while others may look to the world for answers, you've been chosen to bring answers from the kingdom within you. While the world is searching for stability, you've been entrusted with peace that surpasses understanding. Philippians 4:7. You are a walking sanctuary, proof that God still plants himself inside people. But here's the question. Will you embrace this assignment fully? Will you step out of comfort and into calling? Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs those who carry light intentionally. Think of the prophet Esther, who was told, "Perhaps you were born for such a time as this." Esther 4:14. That wasn't just her moment. It's yours too. You were marked not to escape the darkness, but to reveal light within it. You were called not to avoid the world, but to reshape it through divine vibration. This is your mission. Not someday, not when you're more ready, but right now, as you are. Right now, the world is groaning for healing, truth, and clarity. Systems are collapsing. Identities are being questioned. Fear is rising. And while many are being swept away by the chaos, you are rising within it. Not because you're better, but because you were built for this. This is why you carry those 3 spiritual marks. They were never meant to be hidden. They were meant to be activated in such a time as this. This generation doesn't need more followers. It needs activators of light. It needs people like you, those who are aligned with their frequency, who create from a space of divine intention, and who vibrate healing even in silence. Do you understand how rare that is? How deeply needed it is? You're not here to escape the world's brokenness. You're here to reveal a higher reality from within it. In Romans 8:19, Paul writes, "For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed." That's you. The earth is not waiting for celebrities, politicians, or influencers to fix things. It's waiting for the revealing of the chosen ones, those who know who they are in God and walk in that authority with grace and wisdom. You don't have to save everyone. You just need to show up as who you are, fully and unapologetically. Your healing frequency is already affecting your family, your community, your workplace. Whether you speak or not, your thoughts are already forming invisible bridges to the future. Your presence is already calling others higher just by being in alignment with your soul. But here's the truth many avoid. Being chosen doesn't mean being celebrated. It means being set apart. And sometimes that can feel lonely. But isolation is not punishment. It is preparation. Just like Moses, who spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading a nation. Just like Jesus, who fasted alone in the desert before beginning his ministry. Your alone time is sacred. It's where God fine-tunes your frequency. So don't resist the quiet seasons. Don't curse the delays. They are sharpening you, because what you carry must be clean, clear, and consecrated before it can be entrusted with greater influence. And when the time comes, when the right moment aligns with your readiness, God will place you exactly where your presence is needed most. You won't need to force doors open. You won't need to convince people to believe in you. Your frequency will speak. Your clarity will create. and your alignment will unlock everything heaven already wrote with your name on it. So now, ask yourself, are you willing to let go of who you were, to step fully into who you're becoming? Are you willing to carry these 3 marks, not just with humility, but with courage? Because the world isn't waiting for perfection, it's waiting for presence, yours. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life where knowing is no longer enough. You feel it, don't you? You've gone from asking for signs to becoming the sign, from observing miracles to embodying them, from wondering what your purpose is to realizing you are the vessel of that purpose, alive, breathing, vibrating, and being led moment by moment. You're not just called to understand these 3 spiritual marks. You're called to live as a walking manifestation of them. You walk into a room and healing flows without effort. You speak a word and someone's heart cracks open. You sit in silence and even that silence becomes presence. That's not imagination. That's what happens when a soul is aligned. And this alignment is not a destination. It's a way of life. It means choosing to stay centered in truth, even when emotions rise. It means listening more closely to the quiet voice within than the noise around you. It means treating every moment as holy, because when you're truly aligned, everything becomes sacred. Jesus lived this way. He didn't rush. He didn't chase. He simply moved in rhythm with heaven. When he healed, it was with intention. When he taught, it pierced hearts. And when he was silent, even that silence carried revelation. That same Spirit dwells within you. The same power that raised him lives in you. Romans 8:11. So why are you still playing small? Have you realized that the version of you that the world has been waiting for is the one that stops shrinking to fit comfort? Because your mission now is not to prove your power, but to become so aligned that power flows through you effortlessly. You're not here to beg for blessings. You are here to recognize that you are the blessing. And when you live from that place, life doesn't become easier, it becomes anointed. Your struggles become initiations. Your solitude becomes sanctuary. Your every breath becomes a prayer in motion, and people begin to look at you differently, not because you're louder, richer, or more impressive, but because your spirit carries something timeless, something they've forgotten, something they're trying to remember, something eternal. So now that you've remembered who you are, will you now live as if it's true? Will you rise each day, not just as a human seeking meaning, but as a chosen one sent here to radiate truth in a world starving for it? Because this is not just about what you carry. This is about what you activate in others when you fully become who you are. There comes a moment on every chosen one's path when you realize you're no longer just learning about purpose. You've become its living expression. You stop chasing meaning and start embodying it. You're no longer searching for signs because now you are the sign. You've become a walking message, a frequency of heaven encoded in human form, and that awareness changes everything. You start to notice that your life flows with greater precision. The things that once confused you begin to make sense. The pain, the delays, the betrayals, you now see them as part of a divine sculpting process. God wasn't punishing you. He was preparing you. Just as gold must be refined by fire, your soul was being tempered for divine assignment. In 2 Timothy 2:21, Paul writes, "Those who cleanse themselves will be instruments for special purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work." That's what you are becoming. An instrument, refined, sacred, and deeply tuned. That's why your mind had to be purified. That's why your thoughts became more powerful. That's why your presence began to affect others without effort. It's all part of the same design. But now comes the deeper invitation. Will you allow yourself to become fully available to your divine assignment? Not just when it's convenient, not just when it feels inspiring, but even when it costs you comfort, familiarity, and the illusion of control. Because when you walk in full surrender, your life becomes miraculously efficient. The right doors open without force. The wrong connections fall away without drama. Your energy becomes sacred, and heaven protects it with precision. You don't chase, you attract. You don't strive, you synchronize. You don't beg, you believe. This is the life of a chosen one. Not always easy, but always meaningful. Not always praised, but always guided. And when you truly live in this flow, the supernatural becomes natural. You begin to experience peace in chaos, clarity in confusion, provision where there was once lack. Your very existence becomes evidence of God's ongoing work in the world. Think of Noah, who built the ark long before the first drop of rain. He wasn't responding to the world, he was responding to a frequency from heaven. People mocked him, but he wasn't building for them. He was building for what was coming, and when it came, he was ready. Are you ready to build what God is showing you, even if no one else understands it? Are you willing to walk by faith, not by sight, trusting that your frequency has already gone ahead of you and prepared the way? Because you were not chosen to conform to this world. You were chosen to recalibrate it. Your life is the ark. Your vision is the blueprint. And your presence is the proof that heaven still speaks. As we reach the conclusion of today's message, take a moment to reflect on the profound truth. You, God's chosen ones, carry these three powerful spiritual marks within you. Whether you're fully conscious of them or not, they are already at work in your life, guiding your path, shaping your character, and revealing the depth of your purpose. Just as Jesus said in Matthew 12:35, "A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him." What you cultivate within you will naturally flow out into the world. And in your case, this flow is nothing short of divine. Life, healing, wisdom, and awakening all spring from the very essence of the Creator within you. So, I ask you, what are you storing inside? What are you radiating to those around you? What are you allowing to shape your thoughts, your actions, your heart? If you align yourself with the divine calling on your life, you'll find that life no longer happens to you. It flows through you. You become a vessel of purpose, a channel for transformation, a beacon of light in a world that desperately needs it. Now, if your heart is stirred by this truth, if something inside you is awakening to the call that's been placed on your life, I invite you to join this community. Subscribe to this channel and step deeper into the journey of self-discovery, spiritual growth, and divine awakening. Here, we're not about surface-level living. We are a collective of God's chosen ones, a generation awakening to its highest spiritual potential, striving toward our divine zenith. Together, we are creating a movement of conscious beings who understand that we are not merely living for a purpose, but that we are the purpose. God's living idea manifesting through us, experiencing life through our skin and spirit. I want you to know this. You are not here to search for a purpose. You are the purpose. You are God's divine expression in this world. The path you walk is not just your journey. It's a sacred unfolding of God's will through you, and the world is waiting for the full revelation of what you carry. So, walk boldly, with unwavering faith, into the unknown. Know that the infinite possibilities you've been waiting for are already on their way to you. The doors of destiny are opening, and you are meant to walk through them, not by chance, but by divine design. Your purpose is not something you need to chase. It is something that is already flowing to you as you align with God's will. If this message has touched your heart and you feel called to support the continuation of this journey, I invite you to consider donating through Super Thanks. Your generosity helps sustain this space where divine truth, wisdom, and awakening can continue to grow and reach more people like you. Whether you choose to donate or not, please know that I am deeply grateful for your presence and your support, in whatever form it takes. I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this message with anyone who needs to hear this truth. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear how this message has impacted you. Let's keep this conversation going together as we continue to rise in the fullness of our calling. May God bless you richly. May His favor rest upon you, and may you continue to walk boldly in the light of His love, knowing that you are the living proof of His divine purpose in the world. God bless you always.